Hey, this is called practical considerations, and let's get going. Um, First of all, some of the things we're going to discuss are mortgages and secured liens, the use of words, how to deal with a presentment, how to deal with code enforcers, how to deal with the satanic kangaroo courts, and how to deal with the satanic prisons, and how to deal with it all after the fact. Everything they do is based on hearsay evidence. That's the first thing, the most important thing you have to understand. And hearsay evidence is inadmissible in any court of law. A social security number is hearsay. A driver's license is hearsay. Think about it. A date of birth is hearsay. Do you have firsthand knowledge of your date of birth? All images are hearsay. Your name is hearsay. Why do you think they want you to verify the name in their kangaroo court? Your address is hearsay. They need you to introduce the hearsay evidence. They absolutely have to have you introduce the evidence against yourself. So don't give it to them. The reason is everything they do is a fraud. They know it's a fraud. They want you to participate in the fraud. It's a clerk masquerading as a judge. He's a fraud. They criminally convert your name. Another fraud. They criminally convert your postal address. Another fraud. It's based on hearsay evidence. Another fraud. The so-called court case is based on confession and avoidance. It's more fraud. Once a fraud, always a fraud. Things invalid from the beginning cannot be made valid by some subsequent act. A thing void in the beginning does not become valid by a lapse of time. Time cannot render valid an act void in its origin. Every court case out there is a fraud. These are all maxims of law. Out of fraud, no action arises, and any act by any government official to conceal a fraud becomes an act of fraud. It is a fraud to conceal a fraud, and fraud is inexcusable and unpardonable. Fraud and deceit should excuse no man. These are all maxims of law. Everything they do is a fraud, and any fraud amounts to injustice. Fraud and justice never dwell together. What is otherwise good and justice sought by force or fraud becomes bad and unjust. Okay, so, and we're going to go through that. Okay, so everything they do is a fraud. You have to understand that. Everything they do is a fraud. Color means an appearance, a semblance, a simulacrum, as distinguished from that which is a real, a prima facie or apparent right. Hence, a deceptive appearance. Gee, that sounds like fraud. A plausible assumed exterior concealing a lack of reality, a fraud. A disguise or a pretext. It's color of law. Colorable means that which is in appearance only and not in reality what it purports to be. Hence, counterfeit, feigned, having the appearance of truth. A fraud. Color of law means the appearance or semblance without the substance of legal right. Misuse of power possessed by virtue of state law and made possible only because wrongdoer is clothed with authority status action taken under color of law. It's a fraud. Color signifies a probable plea, but which is in fact false. And that's Tomlin's Law Dictionary, 1835 edition. It's a fraud. Give color. This is taken from Black's Law Dictionary, 8th edition. Give color. To admit either expressly or impliedly by silence that an opponent's allegations appear to be meritorious. In common law pleading, a defendant's plea of confession and avoidance had to give color to the plaintiff's allegations in the complaint, or the plea would be fatally defective. Okay, so you got to give color. Okay, so it's all a fraud. Everything they do is a fraud. These people are Satanist people. That's exactly what they are. Now, some practical considerations as far as mortgages and vehicle liens. So the thing you have to understand about the hearsay evidence is that the only way that they can get hearsay evidence is if you admit it and you don't object to it. Okay, so that's the key. Okay, if they assault you to get the hearsay evidence, Well, make sure and bring that up. If you know that a foreclosure is imminent, you have to go on the attack, okay? Now, all these mortgages are absolutely full of fraud, okay? And that's the argument, okay? But you have already, if you think about it, you've already participated in the fraud. So the only way you can even have any hope of winning is you have to go on the attack, okay? And you have to say basically that you discovered all this fraud. And that's what you have to do. And you know, as long as you say you recently discovered it, that's the important thing. Okay, I mean, the longer you wait, the worse it is. But you can recently discover it, and that's not as bad. Anyways, if you know that a foreclosure is imminent, if you want to win, if you want to defeat that thing, you have to go on the attack. You cannot wait until they attack you, because you will lose. If you attack them first, you might win. The arguments are: prove the debt, okay? Demand that they prove the debt, okay? And if they bring in a copy of the note, okay, well then that is not your signature on it, because it's a copy, okay? That is not your signature. The only thing that has your signature on is that blue ink, that wet ink signature that was on the original document. And that's the only thing. Prove the alleged debt. Nothing was loaned, okay? If you go into my videos about all bank loans are a fraud, okay? Watch those videos. There was nothing loaned. Banks do not loan money. Fraud from the inception. It was a fraud at the beginning, okay? And there's a whole bunch of reasons why. And if you do a little bit of research, you'll be able to pick it apart. But having said all of that, this is one way that some people that I happen to know were able to deal with something, okay? And this was actually a vehicle, and it was, this was in Canada. This is where this was. And so I'm not sure about how this would work in the U.S. It'd be interesting to try it. Anyways, a bill of exchange was done with a vehicle that the bank was trying to steal, okay? They were trying to repossess it. And so on the bill of exchange, they said that $5,000 worth of legal and equitable title in a vehicle, and the vehicle was worth $15,000, was exchanged to a third party for labor. Okay, so, and we'll go through what the bill of exchange would say, but it's pretty simple. Anyways, the third party then took his bill of exchange to the bank and asked them what is their interest in the vehicle, okay? He was prepared to pay off the bank's interest in the vehicle. So he took his bill of exchange to the bank, and he basically said, the labor is complete, and so I need to know what your interest is in this vehicle. And the bank released the vehicle. They said, basically, can you come back in half an hour? And he said, sure. So he went down the street, had a coffee, went back, and they gave him title to the vehicle. To my knowledge, this has not been done on real property. It'd be a good idea to get a document like that notarized. Notarized would be the best in a situation like that. This is what the text of something like that would say. Upon receipt of $5,000 worth of labor from John Henry Doe, I hereby exchange to John Henry Doe all of my legal and equitable title in the property described as, I mean, it doesn't have to say much. It's basically a bill of exchange, right? That's a bill of exchange. That's what that is. You're exchanging labor for property. You could also do it for silver. I don't see why not. But, and so upon receipt of 21 each 1 troy ounce pieces of pure silver from John Henry Doe, I hereby exchange all my legal and equitable title and described in this property. That's pretty simple. It's not really that complicated. That's a bill of exchange. And now words. Words are absolutely everything. And we need to learn to quit using their words. This is only some Okay, there's a lot of their words out there that we use all the time. And there's the commercial words and then the similar common law words. Like, for example, traffic, okay? Or drive. That's another one I should have put in there is drive. You're traveling. You're not driving. It's not traffic. You're traveling. A resident. Okay, a resident at commercial words is resident. At common law, it's an inhabitant. A residence. Okay, that's where you live. If you're in commerce, at common law, it's your abode. Mr., plaintiff, defendant, appellant. Those are all commercial words. At common law, you're a man. A complaint. Okay, or at common law, it's a petition. Spouse, okay, you never use spouse, okay, it's your wife. Children, you don't use children. Why do you think they call it Child Protective Services? Okay, that's all commercial. They're your sons and daughters. Income, you don't have income. You have compensation for labor. You don't have assets. You have property. And you're not married. You're joined in holy matrimony. Okay, all of these are very important, and you got to use the right words. You got to think about these words you're using, because that's how you're framing, everything that goes on. Are you in Toronto or at Toronto? Okay, if you're in Toronto, you're in a corporation. Can you be in a place, or are you at a place? I am at Toronto because I'm at a place and I'm not in a corporation. And all of this is important. You got to think about this stuff. It's what you say. A lot of people say things that by your words, they hang you. I am on the land known as Upper Canada on Turtle Island near Toronto. Fort Worth, the same thing. Okay, you're in Fort Worth or at Fort Worth. If you're in Fort Worth, you're in a corporation. Can you be in a place, or are you at a place? At Fort Worth, because at a place, I'm not in a corporation. I'm at Fort Worth. I'm not in Texas. I'm a man on the land of Texas, on the land known as Texas. New York City. Okay, it's New York City, not City of New York. City of New York is a corporation. Okay, New York City is common law. Same thing with Fort Worth. It's Fort Worth City, not City of Fort Worth. Rules of proper English say that the adjective city must come after the proper name, New York. When they do not follow the rules of proper English, it creates a fiction at law. At-law versus in-law. A mother-in-law is a mother because of a marriage, a contract. If you're in law, then there's a contract. At-law, the phrase is used to point out a thing is to be done according to the course of the common law. It is distinguished from a proceeding in equity. In many cases, when there is no remedy at law, one will be afforded in equity. That's Bouvier's Law Dictionary, 1856 edition. Is your house in a corporation? If you have Arabic numbers on your house, then it's in the corporation. Some people have removed the Arabic numbers, and some people use 1234 instead of 1234. If you look at land patents, the legal descriptions always has the numbers spelled out, no Arabic numbers. Presentments. Anytime you get a letter from the government or any corporation, it's an offer of contract. They send you a letter saying, our codes say that your grass is too long, and if you don't mow your grass, we're going to fine you $200. Reject their offer of contract. That's what you do, okay? And you keep doing that, and, they send all sorts of letters out. You just reject their offer of contract. You have to do it within 3 days under their satanic regulation Z. Is the letter sent to you or their straw man? It's sent to their straw man 99% of the time. When I get a letter, I do not open it. I write in the outside, refuse for fraud, no such person at this address. You can do that. You can also, someone was telling me today that you write on the outside, you don't open it, you write on the outside. If you know it's an offer of contract, then you just your offer of contract is rejected, put it in a separate envelope. The one way that you can tell is if it's got a metered stamp on it. And so then when you send it back to them, you put it in another envelope and you put real stamps on it. And this is a rejection I did recently with the pigs in Azle, Texas, and we'll go through the text here in a minute. I wanted to show you this because my appellation is spelt in all block capital letters. They've criminally converted everything, and even their stuff is all criminally converted. It's the reason I'm showing it to you is because the stuff I put on there to the text is at a 45-degree angle across, and it's in red ink. And this is what it says. Sent by registered mail, and we'll go through the reason for that in a minute. Date received, 9th day of April in the year 2016. Okay, it's all spelled out. I, by declaration, am a man and a declared living American sovereign, standing with treaty law of God, do accept your offer for value, and for the following reasons I'm returning your offer rejected for discharge and closure. You have brought United States corporate law with color outside your jurisdiction and without an international treaty with my republic state, and you have no jurisdiction on the land of Texas. You falsely accuse me of being a citizen of the United States. You're trespassing and criminally attempting to convert corporate statutes with color into lawful criminal codes without chartered, regulatory, and delegated jurisdictional authority. You're not registered or chartered for conducting business in Texas by my republic state, and you fail to state a lawful claim upon which relief can be granted, all of which is sealed in red ink on the land of Texas and submitted pursuant to locus sigilli and your Rule 201 of your rules of evidence under penalty of perjury pursuant to your 28 U.S.C. 1746-1 without the United States. Dated this 10th day of April in the year 2016. And LS means locus sigilli. And that basically, locus sigilli, if you look that up in a law dictionary, it means the place of the seal. So you're sealing it. And so then a man, sovereign living soul, holder of the office of the people, inhabitant of the land of Texas. The date received and the date rejected need to be within 3 days of each other. Regulation Z is truth in lending. It's what it's all about. So this is nothing more than a commercial transaction. These Satanists are assaulting you to generate revenue for their Satanist handlers. I like registered mail because it's kept under lock and key with a chain of custody until it's delivered. You can use certified mail. You need some proof of service. The pigs intend to assault you with their DC code. All of this stuff is proof that they intend to do it, and they intend to be next, obviously. Anytime if I get an offer of contract from a corporation, I send them an invoice and I never hear from them again. If I get an offer of contract from the government, I send them a notice and demand and an invoice and see what happens, because they're nothing but a bunch of Satanists. They'll keep coming back around. A lot of times they do, but eventually they go away. Do you want to go into their courts? No. Their courts have the appearance of justice, and it's a show trial. It's a kangaroo court. That color of law is the appearance or semblance without the substance of legal right, misuse of power possessed by virtue of state law and made possible only because wrongdoer is clothed with authority of state as action taken under color of law. These people are Satanists. That's exactly what they are. Nothing less. And look at this. This is actually taken from a jury instructions from a federal court case. And in here it says, it is not a defense to the crime of contempt that the court order that the defendant is accused of violating was unlawful or unconstitutional. Okay, you want to go into a court when that kind of stuff can happen? Do you want to go into their kangaroo court for their show trial so the whore on the bench can give you an unlawful or unconstitutional order and then threaten you with contempt if you don't do what the Satanist tells you to do? Could there be any better evidence that it's a commercial transaction? They put jurors in jail who do not rule the way they tell them to. These people are Satanists. Do not give them jurisdiction. See the jurisdiction video. Challenge their jurisdiction. Once you challenge their jurisdiction, they have to prove it. If they fail to prove it or even discuss the issues brought up in the jurisdictional challenge, then it's a commercial transaction. That's exactly what it is, and reject their offer of contract. These people are Satanists. A warrant is a precept under hand or seal to some officer to take up any offender to be dealt with according to due course of law. That's Tomlin's Law Dictionary, 1835 edition. A bill. by bill without writ. In practice, terms anciently used to designate actions commenced by original bill. Okay, well, that's what these Satanists are doing, as distinguished from those commenced by original writ. Okay, so it's not an original writ. They're assaulting you with a bill is what they're doing. And applied to modern practice to suits commenced by capias. That's what they do, is they issue, that's what these bail priests and these kangaroo courts issue, is a capias. The usual course of commencing an action in the Queen's Bench was by a bill of Middlesex. In an action commenced by bill, it is not necessary to notice the form or nature of the action. That's Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition. Capias ad respondendum. This is Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition again. A judicial writ, usually simply termed a capias and commonly abbreviated to CARESP, by which actions at law were frequently commenced and which commands the sheriff to take the defendant and keep him safely, so that he may have his body before the court on a certain day to answer the plaintiff in the action. And it notifies defendant to bend suit and procures his arrest until security for plaintiff claim is furnished. Okay, so they just want money. Okay, don't you see that? They want security for the claim. Okay, they just want to assault you so they can generate money for their handlers. Okay, they're nothing but a bunch of thieves. A capias is not a warrant of arrest. Okay, this is Texas Court of Criminal Appeals. Okay, so they assault you with their capias. Now, another thing they do is in the Texas Civil Practice and Remedy Code. It says, except as provided by Section 36.34.061, an officer is not liable for damages resulting from the execution of a writ issued by a court of the state if the officer in good faith executes or attempts to execute the writ. Okay, so they want their Satanist code enforcers to have immunity. They want to have them get away with assaulting you so that they can assault you. They want to assault you. That's exactly what they want to do. These people are Satanists. You can use the principle of estoppel described in my Asserting Sovereignty video playlist to prevent them from proceeding. Okay, so you have to go on the attack. And this is all stuff you bring up. Okay, if you watch that Asserting a Sovereignty video playlist, it goes through a procedure that I use where you can notice them and you can put them in the position where, for example, I was recently stopped by the Huntsville pigs, and the pig wouldn't mention that. I told him that a lot of times the clerks, the judges are not judges, they're clerks masquerading as judges, and they cannot do anything judicial, and if they issue a warrant, it's a fraud and a nullity. And that's when he said that because he's operating in good faith, the statute said that he's got immunity. And I said, yeah, but now I just told you. And he didn't say nothing to that. And it's interesting to know that I left that day. And I'm making another video for the Huntsville pigs too, because they deserve it. Anyways, so these code enforcers are LEOs is what they are, law enforcement officers, these code enforcers. So if you get stopped or assaulted by one of these pigs, be nice. Tell them that you don't have a problem providing whatever they want, but you have a couple of questions. Ask them if there's a breach of the peace. They'll say no. Ask them if they have evidence that you're carrying passengers or property for hire. They'll say no. Ask them, am I under arrest? They'll say you're being detained. Ask them, tell them that if you're not free to go, then you're arrested. And then ask them again, am I free to go? And if they say you're free to go, then leave. Some other things you might say is, since there was no breach of the peace, then you're not operating as a peace officer, but you're operating in your private capacity as a revenue officer under the Federal Tax Lien Act of 1966. Is that correct? And if you have any doubt about that, watch the video, my YouTube video about Leos. They'll probably deny it, but they will not rebut it either because it's actually the truth. If I provide a driver's license or insurance or registration, can it be used against me in a court of law? And they'll say yes. And then tell them you do not have to give evidence against yourself, and tell them you want your attorney. If they drag you into their kangaroo so-called court, challenge jurisdiction from the beginning. I don't give you a jurisdiction. So what are we doing here? Another void judgment? And don't call it the clerk, Your Honor. Matter of fact, is this the clerk? It's another thing I'd say. So you're the bought and paid for a clerk masquerading as the judge. Is that correct? And where's the contract in this matter, Satanist? Do you intend to be personally liable in this matter? Can I see your bond? That's where I'd be going with it. If they ignore your challenges to jurisdiction, that's an offer of contract, and you reject his offer of contract and file a criminal complaint. And it doesn't matter. They can sit there and railroad you all day. Once you get out, you do all that stuff. An officer who acts in violation of the Constitution ceases to represent the government. So he's not representing the government. They're nothing but a bunch of thieves. Ignorance of the law does not exclude misconduct, and anyone, least of all a sworn officer of the law. In the case of an illegal arrest, the officer is bound to know these fundamental rights and privileges and must keep within the law at his peril. Failure to obey the command of a police officer constitutes a traditional form of breach of the peace. Obviously, however, one cannot be punished for failing to obey the command of a peace officer, if the command itself is violative of the Constitution, okay? If the command violates the Constitution, then he's not a peace officer anymore, okay? He's operating in his private capacity. The courts have decreed that want of jurisdiction makes all acts of judges, magistrates, U.S. Marshals, sheriffs, local police all void. Not just voidable, void. Where there's no jurisdiction, there's no judge. The proceeding is as nothing. Such has been the law from the days of Marshal Saya. And that's Bradley versus Fisher. That's the Supreme Court case. And that's quoted again in this federal case. A void judgment is one which from its inception was a complete nullity and without legal effect. And that's federal cases. Brutum fulmen, an empty noise, an empty threat, a judgment void upon its face, which is in legal effect as no judgment of all and by which no rights are divested and from which none can be obtained. It neither binds nor bars anyone. And that's Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition. Not every action by any judge is in exercise of his judicial function. It's not a judicial function for a judge to commit an intentional tort, even though the tort occurs in the courthouse. When a judge acts as a trespasser of the law, when a judge does not follow the law, the judge loses subject matter jurisdiction, and the judge's orders are void and no legal force or effect. Okay, and so they're nothing but a bunch of thieves. Judge loses his absolute immunity from damage actions only when he acts in clear absence of all jurisdiction or performance of an act which is not judicial in nature. Okay, when he's a clerk masquerading as a judge, it's not judicial. Where any state proceeds against a private individual in a judicial form, it's well settled that the state, county, municipality, etc., waives any immunity to counters, cross claims, and complaints by direct or collateral means regarding the matters involved. When acting to enforce a statute and its subsequent amendments to the present date, the judge of the municipal court is acting as an administrative officer and not in a judicial capacity. Courts administrating or enforcing statutes do not act judicially, but merely ministerially. And that's Thompson versus Smith. That's a Texas case. Ministerial officers are incompetent to receive grants of judicial power from the legislature. Their acts in attempting to exercise such powers are necessarily nullities. Okay, so the clerk on the bench cannot issue a warrant. Okay, it's a fraud. Every citizen and freeman is endowed with certain rights and privileges to enjoy which no written law or statute is required. These are the fundamental or natural rights recognized among all free people. Whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it. When a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under utter despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government. Wake up, people! It is not the function of our government to keep the citizen from falling into error. It is the function of the citizen to keep the government from falling into error. That's U.S. Supreme Court. No action can be taken against a sovereign in the non-constitutional courts of either the United States or the state courts, and any such action is considered a crime of barratry, and barratry is an offense at common law. The judicial power of the United States shall not be construed to extend to any suit in law or equity commenced or prosecuted against any one of the United States by citizens of another state or by citizens or subjects of any foreign state. So you never sue the government. You always go after the individuals. Those are the ones that are doing it. At a minimum, you should administrate everybody who potentially could be involved with you or your straw man, including chiefs of police, attorney general, chief judges, presiding judges, prosecutors, commissioners, federal officials, provincial or state officials, and the bureaucrats. If you're getting anything from the government offices, find out who's in charge and administrate them. Even if you even have the smallest hint that something is going on involving you or your straw man, administrate them. Start building a case against them. When the code enforcers stop you, I cannot be there. You have to be able to articulate your position. Do not show them government-issued ID unless you have to. If you do, you tell them it's hearsay, and you're only doing it under threat, and bring it up in their kangaroo court if you have to. If you have done your homework, then they should decide to move on. Even if you do produce the government-issued ID, you have to pick your battles. Sometimes it's better to come back and fight another day. As far as fingerprints are concerned, I tell them that they're not taking any fingerprints. I do not consent. Tell them if they want to break my fingers off, you can go ahead. Do not consent to their unlawful search. When they tell you they're going to search your property, tell them, no, you're not, and stick to it. Tell them I do not consent. Tell them you have the gun, so you can do whatever you want, but if you're going to violate my rights, then you need to go all the way and take me over there and blow my brains out, because by the time I'm done with you, you're going to wish you did, and I'll do it all within the law. And tell them, what's your name? It's for the criminal complaint I'm going to file. Always keep your door locked. Never answer your door if the police are there. If they want to have a lawful warrant, they'll break the door down. If they do not have a lawful warrant, they'll go away. If you open the door, they'll push you out of the way and walk in, and you let them in. Demand to see a judge. If they go and assault you and drag you into their jail, demand to see a judge. Get his butt out of bed. I don't care if it's 2 o'clock in the morning. Get names, everybody, write them down if you can. If you have to file a lawsuit, it's like throwing mud against the wall. You never know what's going to stick. Do you know who you are? Never sign anything. If you sign it under threat, duress, and intimidation, they'll claim ignorance. If they tell you that you're staying in jail until you do sign it, tell them to get a judge here now. If they want you to sign something and it's a contract, I've heard of cases where they would kick somebody out of there because they refused to sign anything. Matter of fact, I know someone quite recently where their case is essentially going away because they refused to sign stuff, and they actually filed a revocation of all signatures. And so that's the next thing I'm telling you is even if they go and railroad you, file a revocation of all signatures into the case and file a notice of void judgment into the case. And then start preparing your lawsuit. File a claim with their risk management department. They all carry insurance. Their insurance companies have lawyers. The lawyers know the liability they're being exposed to. The lawyers will slap them. You might get some compensation. If they have railroaded you and you did their slave time in their jail, file a notice of void judgment into their case. File a notice of revocation of all signatures. I have some groups. These are called Administrating-Your-Public-Servants at Google and Yahoo. If you want access to the files or the posts, you'll need to join the groups. You use a nickname to maintain your privacy. Only group members can read the posts. Only group members can invite others to join the group. The first few posts have links that are to some documents that I've uploaded to Google Docs. I've also uploaded a lot of files to the Yahoo group, and there's links to directories for the links to the Google Docs. Oh, there's a links directory for links to the Google Docs. I'm available to help with documents preparation online by email. There are other people in the group who will also help, but if you need to be aware that there are a lot of people mean well, they may be trying to help, but they may not be helping at all. I plan on letting people in the group go over what they want in the discussion within some limits. At some point, I'll make a couple of members group managers, and they'll be available to help. You do not have to be in poverty to be a sovereign. There are lots of sovereigns who are very wealthy. You do have to know the law and how it works. You do have to stay out of what they view to be contracts. The driver's license is not the contract, but when you pull it out and give it to them, that's when the contract. At common law, the wife and minor children are the property of the husband. At common law, all births are recorded in the family Bible. Do not register the births of your children. Having babies in the hospital is a guaranteed birth registration. Have babies at home and when possible. There are midwives who are very competent to assist. A couple of my children, my sons and daughters, were born at home. See, do not register the births of your children. I need to change that. Do not register the births of your sons and daughters. See, I even do it. And so you got to stay away from these words. Social Security numbers are not mandatory in Canada. As the taxing thieves, they'll tell you. Do not get the numbers. If your straw man has one, don't give it out. Open bank accounts without the numbers. In Canada, you can get the CRA to tell your potential boss that the sin is not mandatory. These Satanists cannot speak the truth. This is one of the hallmarks of Satanism: lies and half-truths, fraud and deception. They criminally convert your appellation. They criminally convert your postal address. They present the judge as neutral and unbiased, when the fact is the so-called judge is actually bought and paid for a clerk. And see Leo's and Hazel, Texas videos 1, 2, 3, and 4. 4 is upcoming. Everything they do is a fraud. Color signifies a probable plea, but which is in fact false. They lie in wait for you to say the wrong thing so they can justify selling you into slavery. And this is Black's Law Dictionary 8th edition. To give color, to admit either express or imply by silence that the opponent's allegations appear to be meritorious. In common law pleading, a defendant's plea of confession and avoidance had to give color to the plaintiff's allegation and the complaint, or the plea would be fatally defective. So the answer is to reject their offer of contract. Remember, they initiated their little kangaroo court with a bill. Okay, well, reject their offer of contract, because that's what it is. That's all it is, and that's what you have to understand. I reject your offer of contract. You have no authority. You're the father of your you're of your father the devil, and the lusts of your father you will do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. And that's John 8 and 44. But the fearful and unbelieving and abominable and murderers and whoremongers and sorcerers and idolaters and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. Okay, so if you're afraid of this, then I'm afraid you're not going to do too well on Judgment Day. That where the Constitution has once formally extended by Congress to territories, neither Congress nor the territorial legislature can enact laws inconsistent therewith. And that's U.S. Supreme Court. It never became a law, and it was as much a nullity as if it had been in the act or declaration of another authorized assemblage of individuals. An unconstitutional law is void and is no law, and the offense created by it is not a crime. And that's, again, U.S. Supreme Court. An unconstitutional act is not law. It confers no rights. It imposes no duties. It affords no protection. It creates no office. It is in legal contemplation as inoperative as though it had never been passed. U.S. Supreme Court. No one is bound to obey an unconstitutional law, and no courts are bound to enforce it. So they're not courts, okay? Because it's all unconstitutional, so it's not a court. That's why you reject their offer of contract. State citizens are the only ones living under free government whose rights are incapable of impairment by legislation or judicial decision. This is see, and these Satanist pigs know all about this stuff, okay? And these Satanist pigs, we the people need to rise up and start making some of these people do the little dance they do at the end of a common law rope, and that'll put an end to it, but not until, okay? Until we the people rise up and put a stop to this, it's going to only get worse. State citizenship is a vested substantial property right, and the state has no power to divest or impair these rights. The state cannot diminish the rights of the people. That's U.S. Supreme Court. By which also he went and preached to the spirits in prison. These Satanist pigs' judgment day is coming. And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall punish the host of the high ones that are on high, and the kings of the earth upon the earth, and they shall be gathered together as prisoners are gathered in the pit, and they shall be shut up in the prison, and after many days shall they be visited. And that's where these Satanists are going to go. These Satanist pigs are operating as revenue officers under the Federal Tax Lien Act of 1966. See Leo's and Hazel, Texas video 1, 2, 3, and 4. These Satanist pigs are assaulting you with their unconstitutional Satanic Uniform Commercial Code, which is governed by their Unidroit Treaty and the UN Satanist Bankster Thief Handlers. See the Unidroit video, the Leos and Azle, Texas videos, part 1, 2, 3, and 4, all of which is the objective of assaulting you with one of their satanic law merchant so-called contracts. Brown lays down the rule in these terms. The general rule, however, present is that the Admiralty acts only in rem and that no person can be subject to that jurisdiction but by his consent expressed by his entering into a stipulation, which is a contract, people. Reject their offer of contract. In Krebel's reports quoted by Brown, it's expressly said that without a stipulation, the Admiralty has no jurisdiction at all over the person. Reject their offer of contract. It's impossible to prove jurisdiction exists absent a substantial nexus with the state, such as a voluntary subscription to a license. All jurisdictional facts supporting the claim that supposed jurisdiction exists must appear on the record of the court. That's U.S. Supreme Court. Reject their offer of contract. Don't give them evidence. Their so-called court of record is still an Admiralty jurisdiction. It's still a plenary jurisdiction. It's still a kangaroo court. It's still based on a statute and dealing with a statute. The so-called judge is still a clerk masquerading as a judge. It's still a territorial court. It is more fraud and Satanism being perpetrated by these DC Satanists. These DC pigs are making business for their clerk masquerading as a judge. This has nothing to do with justice and has everything to do with extortion and racketeering. These Satanist pigs know exactly what they're doing. I have nothing but the contempt for these Satanist pigs in their kangaroo court and their void judgment and their clerk masquerading as a judge. And obviously they intend to be next. So this is the attitude you have to have. And the best thing to do is sue their butt before they even have a chance to do anything. There's a set of books called On the Perpetual Traveler, written by a guy with a pseudonym of W.D. Hill. They're out of print, but you can still buy these books on eBay and Amazon.com and in used bookstores from time to time. And some of the good books are Banking in Silence, How to Keep Your Money, The Passport Report, How to Get a Foreign Passport. PT2, Perpetual Traveler 2, Practice Freedom and Privacy Tactics. Think Like a Tycoon, the Campion Report, Switzerland Tax Haven. Okay, so these are the kinds of things you have to be thinking about, okay, because you cannot wait until you're under attack to be worried about this stuff, okay? By the time you get to be under attack, you're so busy dealing with that, you don't have time to be dealing with this stuff. So you need to be doing this well in advance. It behooves every man who values liberty of conscience for himself to resist invasions of it in the case of others, or their case by change of circumstances become his own. Okay? In other words, if your neighbor gets attacked, help him out because you're going to be next. If you love liberty, wealth better than liberty, the tranquility of servitude better than the animating contest of freedom, go home from us in peace. We ask not your counsel or arms. Crouch down and lick the hands which feed you. May your chains set lightly upon you, and may our posterity forget that you are ever our countrymen. And that's a quote from Samuel Adams, the father of the American Revolution, member of the Sons of Liberty, and quoted from the debates of 1776. Do you know who you are? Never, ever, ever give up. It is never over until you say it's over, okay? It is never over. Every one of these whores and these kangaroo courts, they're all kangaroo courts, and all of these so-called judgments are void, okay? And you can pick them apart all over the place. And so now I have done my duty, okay? But if the watchmen see the sword come and blow not the trumpet, and the people be not warned, and if the sword come and take any person from among them, he's taken away in his iniquity, but his blood will I require at the watchman's hand. So now you, watching this video, are a watchman. Either you're part of the problem or you're part of the solution. Please circulate this video far and wide. You need to do your part to expose this, and I've made the video. So it's pretty simple to circulate it. Other videos, Bankster Thieves 1, 2, and 3, the Churchianity series, Bankrupt Corporate So-Called Governments, Bar Members 1, 2. Actually, there's a Bar Members 3. Unidroit, Martial Laws here, Quasi-Contracts in Roman Civil Law, De facto courts, all courts are ecclesiastical courts, DC courts in Texas, jurisdiction that we talked about in this video. Copies of these documents can be found in my private group at Yahoo called Administrating-Your-Public-Servants. I have other YouTube videos or videos of private information shares, playlists. I've got several playlists that show these and other court citations that are available for a donation. You can get them free at YouTube. There's some of them that are not at YouTube that are available as well, but they require a donation. Donations to support this work are appreciated. I prefer gold or silver coin, but as an extremely less desirable alternative, I can accept IOUs, Federal Reserve notes, PayPal, gifts, checks, money orders, etc. Send me an email for particulars. If you find this useful, then you need to pay it forward. Okay, that's the minimum. And if you don't know what pay it forward means, then watch the movie. Okay, so you need to circulate this around, and if it helps you and saves you, then you need to pay it forward. My blog is sovereigntyinternational.wordpress.com. I've also got a website, sovereigntyinternational.fyi. My email is engineerwin@yahoo. My YouTube profile is Sovereign Living. I've got a community page at Facebook called Sovereignty International. I've got a private group Facebook called Sovereignty International. I've also got another private group, but the name of it's People Opposed to the Bankster Thieves. I think it's quite a lengthy name. Anyways, then it's talking about my Yahoo private group, Administrating Your Public Servants, and my Google private group, Administrating Your Public Servants. I appreciate you taking the time to watch the video, and I hope you get something out of it, and I hope you spread the word. The only way we're going to put a stop to this stuff is to make it so that everybody knows about it, and that's the only way. So thanks for watching, and have a great day.